Hey, great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our panel about all things St. Andrews University. My name is Elizabeth. I'm a first-year geography student at the London School of Economics, and I'm also a Millie panel moderator. And I'm seriously excited to be moderating this panel today. So for those of you who are tuning into Millie for the first time, Millie is a company dedicated to building a global community for online international students. And to that end, we host these panels and webinars every weekend. So if you're interested in our future events, you can follow us on Instagram at Millie_group for updates. So here's a brief outline of how our panel is going to look today. We have some questions pre-prepared that I'm going to ask and the panelists are going to answer them. And then we'll open it to any viewers to ask questions that are sent throughout the panel. So today we have four really great panelists and I can't wait to hear from their experiences and I hope you're just as excited. So let's dive in. So I'm first going to ask each panelist to give like a little intro. So can you just tell us your name, the major you're studying, or if you did an undergrad, like what did you study? And then the city you're currently in and are from, and one fun fact about yourself. CEO, let's start with you, please.
Hi, my name's Theo. I'm in my second year at St. Andrews studying Arabic and Middle Eastern Studies. And it's the second year of five because I suppose my fun fact, I'm going to be heading away next year to Cairo to work for a year, which is one of the really cool things about St. Andrews, the ability to go do that. But I guess we'll talk about that later. And I'm from London.
I'm Ed. I'm in my fourth year studying management and philosophy. Um, yeah, I used to live down in the south of England, but now I just live in St Andrews, which is nice. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Ailish. I'm also in my fourth year studying English and film. I'm originally from Glasgow, and I'll be returning to Glasgow to do an MLit following graduation this year.
I'm Miriam. I graduated from a BSc in chemistry in 2022. I used to live, like before when I was at uni, I lived down near Cambridgeshire, but I recently moved to Lancaster and have a house here now. So yeah.
Great, thanks, guys. Nice fun fact. Okay, we'll move on to the academic portion, which is what St. Andrews is all about, right? So did you guys know what you wanted to study and how did you decide? Theo?
I think one of the great things about St. Andrews is you don't need to know exactly what you want to do before you come here. So I actually applied for history of art. I did it for A level. I loved it. But if there are any of you doing sort of A levels at the moment, what you might realize is that having finished your A level, you didn't actually love the subject as much as you did when you started the A level or applied to study that subject at university. And I definitely had the same thing with history of art. And kind of the summer before joining St. Andrews, one of the big reasons why I did choose St. Andrews was because I knew I could be flexible when I got here and change my degree very, very easy. I think 40% of people leave university on a different degree to the one they came in on. And that's down to do with kind of the module system. You do 2 years of modules before you choose your sort of degree proper. And so yeah, that's sort of my experience of it. I think it's a great system.
So for myself, like I originally applied to Cardiff Uni to study logistics and management, because I did management at my A level. And then I took a year out and realized that I also wanted to carry on doing philosophy, which I was also studying. So then I came to St Andrews because you can do kind of like weird combinations. Like there's not many universities in the UK where you can do like something like management and philosophy, which are typically like seen as very different subjects. So you just the flexibility that you get from that is kind of like why I wanted to study it here, I guess, because I could just do both and it's a good uni to do that.
I'm kind of similar. I came on a single honours degree just in English. And then once I'd matriculated to the university, you're assigned an academic advisor, and they can help you maybe pick some subjects that accompany the degree program that you're on. So I wanted to kind of stick within a similar remit. So I took English, comparative literature, and film studies for my first 2 years. So it really kind of leans into that interdisciplinary approach. So you can experiment, see what things you like. And then by the time I came to my second year, I switched to English and film as my kind of official degree title. But I think, as has already been emphasized, the flexibility is something that people really make the most of here. And it also kind of allows for a kind of broader expansion of your studies as well.
So I was slightly different in that. So I've obviously got a single honours degree. Chemistry has slightly less flexibility compared to the others because of how many credits chemistry requires. So I only had 30 credits, which is most modules are either 15 or 30, so that's less flexibility within my second year. But I think for the question of do you know what you wanted to study, I genuinely just chose something I enjoyed. And I think that is the most important thing to do when looking at degree courses. Because if you enjoy it, you'll spend more time at it, and in general, you'll do better. Also, thinking longer term, as far as jobs typically don't require a specific degree course. I currently work within the energy sector, which has nothing to do with chemistry. The obvious exclusion to this is healthcare. Typically you do always have to have a specific degree, but even with that, you can do conversion courses later. So if you are stuck between what to study, focus on what you enjoy, and definitely the Scottish university system, St Andrews specifically, the level of flexibility is very impressive.
Great, thanks, guys. You guys kind of semi-answered my next question, but beyond the flexibility of like courses and kind of like the range of subjects that you guys can pick, was there any other reason you guys picked St. Andrews, like whether it was closer to home for some, maybe better program or scholarships, that kind of thing? Yeah, Theo.
It certainly wasn't closer to home for me. And for me, that was actually part of it. Having grown up or spent the majority of my childhood in London, I kind of wanted to get out of the city. I didn't want to be like relate my university experience with the same place that I'd grown up. So obviously that was one of the reasons why I chose St Andrews. And also the place is just beautiful. I mean, it's not many, there aren't many universities in the UK where you can. I mean, I'm looking out and seeing the sea at the moment, and there are 3 beaches. The weather, we were just talking before people joined about how beautiful the weather's been. So that was a big thing for me. The architecture is stunning. It's just a very lovely place to be. And so yeah, that was one of the big pulls for me, I think.
Yeah, mine is very similar to Theo. So like I did just go through like whatever top unis I could get into and like then looked online. I didn't actually visit St Andrews before I came, but I just like watched so many like videos and just like seen what it's like online. And I just knew I wanted to be by the beach after having like traveled for a while before I came to uni and wanted like just not be in a city again. So it was perfect for that. So yeah, it's just like somewhere you can study a really high academic standard, but not have to be in a busy city if you don't like that.
Mine was slightly different because I'm Scottish, so our tuition fees are already paid for. So I knew I was gonna, make the most of that and stay in Scotland. But I also wanted to be kind of far enough away from home that it felt like I was living somewhere else. So from Glasgow, that was kind of St Andrews was the best place for that. But similar to what the guys have said previously, having the kind of the surrounding area being quite relaxing really helps to kind of balance out when things get, maybe a bit busy academically. It's nice that you can just kind of go out and look after yourself. It's really good for kind of taking breaks, so that you don't feel overwhelmed. I think especially when you're joining in your first year, you're trying to get used to a new place, get used to meeting different people. And so having a kind of calm surrounding can be really helpful in making that adjustment in the first place as well.
Honestly, the same as pretty much everyone else. Like, I loved it. I wanted a beach university in particular because I was really into kind of my outdoor sports. Town versus campus played a big part in my decision because I wanted a uni that didn't have to be integrated within like a town. I wanted it to be small. So it is campus style because everything is close together, but actually it's still integrated within a town. It's just the place is so small. I wanted a small uni. I've grown up quite rural. I did not want to be in a metropolis of like Birmingham or London. Like for me, that just wasn't enjoyable or relaxing. St Andrews felt really very safe because of that smallness and the fact it genuinely feels like a village, just with so many more houses. And I really appreciated the respect the university had, like the weight of it. And it's so small, but I love the gowns. Like it just looked brilliant in the prospectus photos. It looked like Hogwarts.
Great, thanks, guys. That's really cute about the gowns. Okay, so what were the requirements like to get in? Because I know this differs from course to course. So yeah, Theo.
I mean, I got my offer through in November, and I think I mean I did pre-U, so these numbers might not mean anything, but I got like D3, D3, M2, which sort of roughly translates to an AAB offer. And it was that was another one of the real reasons why I chose it. Was because I knew that was a from my predicteds like a fairly safe offer for me to get, and I knew that I was probably going to achieve those grades. So for me, for most people I've spoken to, people had, pretty safe offers from St Andrews. You hear of some people going to Edinburgh and being asked for like 4A stars for history. You don't tend to get that at St Andrews. They don't hand out very many offers, but the offers they do hand out, it's because they want you, which is quite a nice feeling to have. So yeah.
Yeah, so mine's was, I think it was 3As. I'm not sure. I honestly can't remember because I did my A levels, I got them back, and then I applied again because I did better than I thought I would. Um, Kind of like what Theo was saying is like when they hand out the offers though, like a large part of it is like the personal statement that you'll do. So they really look for like sort of the passion and like you looking for, you studying a subject not just in class, but then you might go and pursue some like small interest from that class outside of your schooling experience as well. And I think they look for those sort of things. Um, yeah, I do also know that the management school is changing into a business school, so I think that the grade requirements might change given that, but like that's just speculation on my behalf. Yeah.
Kind of similar as well for English. I think it was 3As and a B. But I came through on a widening access program. So I'd attended something like the Sutton Trust Summer School. So I actually had minimum entry requirements as well. It's something that St Andrews are really good at doing as well in terms of accessibility. They do have adjusted grade requirements as well. If you've been on programs like that, you come from a care experience background as well. So make sure that you double check that as well before you apply. The same kind of thing. I think a lot of emphasis was placed on the personal statement for my application through UCAS. They really want to see that you have, you like Edward was saying, that you're passionate about your subject, but also that maybe, you have extracurriculars as well that you've done alongside your studies while you've been in high school. They really value that. They're looking for a kind of an all-rounder, really. So if you can demonstrate that in your personal statement, that will take you far as well.
So bearing in mind, I did join St Andrews in 2018. I was offered AAB with the specification of an A in chemistry. The only thing, because it was interesting, Theo mentioned when he got his offer through chemistry, it was very late. So I got my offer in February. It was the last offer I got from any university. And I actually got my offer after doing a meet and greet day up in St Andrews. Which was a really wonderful experience. We went out for dinner at Zizi's, like as a cohort. It was probably like 30 of us. And actually after that, everybody either got offers or had already had an offer if they were a Scottish student because of the fact it wasn't based off their advanced hires. Again, same as everybody else, there was very little of it that was grade based. So I was offered quite a bit lower than, say, my predicted grades because they wanted the person as much as they wanted the grades you were going to achieve. So big up your cover letter, big up your UCAS, and add on all the things you've done. It doesn't have to be academic. So a large part of what I wrote about was my Sea Cadets and all the skills I'd gained through that and the experiences I had, as well as they really appreciate if you've done a lot of music. So if you've been part of a county youth orchestra or anything like that, make sure to talk about that.
Great, thanks, guys. Really nice that you mentioned the personal statement because I think that's really big for UK universities, especially. I don't think it's as big in the US. So I think my next question, very aptly, is what are some specific things that you included in your personal statement, like for each one of you, that you think helped you get in, if you remember? I know some, like, I don't even remember what I wrote in my personal statement. So yeah, Theo.
I have a lot of friends that are currently at Oxbridge that didn't get into St Andrews, and it was a bit of a shock when that didn't happen because obviously the prestige of Oxbridge and so on. And I remember talking to members of staff at my school and friends of mine at the time, and what we sort of landed on was the idea that people that didn't get in here, but did get into places like Oxbridge, tended to be the more sort of funnel focused on their degree, sort of personal statements. So like, I love, let's say, Arabic because I love Arabic because I love Arabic because I love Arabic. Whereas the people that did tend to get in to St Andrews were like, for example, I love Arabic because I study Spanish and there are links, or I study history and there are links. And it's a lot more sort of synoptic in the approach towards the subject that you want to study. And I think that works quite nicely for St Andrews because obviously the system here is most people study 3 subjects for their first 2 years, 3 different subjects, and then after 2 years you then specialize. So they don't want someone who necessarily knows exactly what they want to do. Well, obviously they want someone who knows exactly what they want to do, but who's open to other things and is more synoptic and is sort of more rounded in their approach to that subject. It's probably different for sciences, but for humanities at least, that's been my experience of it. So the sort of structure of my personal statement was relating all 4 of my A levels towards history of art. And that, by the sounds of things, seem to have helped because it shows that you're interested in a wide range of subjects. You're going to make the most of the fact that St Andrews allows you to study a wide range of subjects, and you're interested in your subject through other subjects.
Yeah, so I've just pulled up my personal statement just because I couldn't really remember what I wrote for it. And looking back over it, I'd say like about 2/3 of it I focused on academic stuff, and then the other third, like I mentioned stuff about like just trying to put myself forward as like an independent person. So like just speaking about the job that I had over my schooling years, and then taking that full time over summer, um, and like just some like lifeguarding qualifications that I did and stuff like that. When it comes to the academic side of it, I think like one thing that I would stress is like look at what your like the school that you want to apply to in St Andrews like specifically teaches. So like there's no if you're wanting to study philosophy, there's only one module in philosophy at St Andrews that teaches the continental tradition. The rest of it is analytics. You need to know like to mention if you're going to mention the stuff that you like about philosophy, do the stuff that's like actually taught at the school, if that makes sense. Like they're sort of like versions of the subjects. And the same with like management. They're really keen on sustainable management at St Andrews. So I was mentioning stuff like corporate philanthropy and some studies that I've like looked into for that. So like tailor what you look into a little bit based on like the type of school it is. That might change like dependent on the school. Like I imagine for more STEM subjects, it will just be what is taught mainstream. But like some of what gets taught in St Andrews like is a bit different to other unis, I suppose.
Yeah, because my UCAS statement was sort of being tailored to 5 different places, I wasn't able to kind of be as specific about St Andrews as maybe I would have liked. But as Theo was saying, I was really kind of emphasizing links between subjects, particularly linking your extracurriculars to how that relates to your subject of interest can also be a really interesting thing because they're looking for how you make kind of broad connections to your subject. So I was a gymnast and also did ballet when I was younger. So I related that to my interest in dramatic performance, kind of made links there from a kind of practical perspective, and then wanting to look at that theoretically. So just to think outside the box, even things like working in Tesco, if you're, stacking newspapers or something, if you want to do something like IR, maybe there's a link in there. Just think as broadly as you can and find those connections. Because that is demonstrating you thinking about your subject more kind of in a worldwide sense rather than just, with a specific academic focus. And then again, at the end, I made sure to balance any kind of work experience I gained or any internships that I'd done. I balanced that in my personal statement also with the section on UCAS that's specifically for work experience. Because you're limited with word count in personal statement, you want to make sure you're emphasizing absolutely everything that can't be mentioned elsewhere in the form. So maybe, have a discussion with your teachers and see where you think placing those specific experiences is best, just because you're limited by the word count, of course.
So I definitely can't remember my personal statement from so long ago, but I had emphasis. So I think I did do a science subject. So yes, the sciences at St Andrews are very much like, it's amazing because of the way the modules are. You can really drill into different topics depending on the specialty of the lecturers. Although I didn't necessarily link all the extracurriculars I'd done with my subject, because I probably could have found a link between sea cadets and chemistry, but instead I showed my personality. What are they kind of buying into as a person? I'm organized. I always turn up. I'm somebody who always works my hardest. I kind of focused on personality traits instead of how this linked to my studies, because being someone who shows up every day means that I am going to do better, because I'll attend your lectures, I'll learn, and I'll ask questions when I don't understand. So I definitely, and I like, I think it was Theo that said doing 2/3 on your subject and 1/3 on who you are as a person. That is probably all I can say due to the fact it was quite a lot of years ago.
Hey, thanks, guys, and thank you for your effort in pulling up your personal statement. I'm sorry that was a bit of a jump scare. But yeah, moving on to something more related to what you're doing now or in the past. How are your courses structured? So do you have like lectures, tutorials, and like exams and assignments? And I'm sure this differs across courses. So yeah, specific to your course, how is it structured? Theo?
Yeah, so I think languages are sort of famous for their contact hours. I have Arabic contact hours every day, and that's 2 days of lectures and then 2 days of small language classes. So last time my language class was literally a teacher and 2 students, which is amazing. This year, this term, it's more like a teacher and 5 students, which is still amazing. And then one contact hour on a Friday of sort of listening or oral work. So languages are quite good for that in terms of getting practice. In terms of other humanities subjects, it tends to be more like 3 contact hours of lectures and 1 contact hour of a tutorial. And that's at sub-honours. And I think at honours, those hours tend to dwindle, although for languages, they don't. So you still have contact hours every single day at honours level. So that's in your last 2 years. But I think once in other humanities, your contact hours do go down once you start your degree proper. I'll let someone else sort of pick up on that.
Yeah, so like going off of that, like in my first 2 years, both in management and philosophy, and I also took a few history modules, like there was more lectures and then like a tutorial once a week. And then the amount of lectures goes down once you get into honors. And it's like more emphasis on like, okay, when you're in those lectures, like a lot of the lectures, especially philosophy, kind of almost become seminars and tutorials like halfway through because they're quite small. For management, it's a bit more of a popular subject, so I guess it's a bit busier. It's less like that. But also like, and then in terms of like assessments and exams and stuff like that, I know that I don't like exams, so I chose modules that were just coursework focused. And some of those coursework pieces can be quite different. They're not just like standard essays. I remember for my NGO module, like we actually went to an NGO in Dundee and did kind of like a consulting project for them that then they actually like got at the end of it. So like the assessments and the exam stuff aren't like always very uniform, but like yeah, that probably depends on the subject quite a bit. There was also like I remember for philosophy there was also like this like continuous assessment kind of a thing where like you'd have to like write a little 250 words each week, like answering some short question, which like keeps you having to like be on the ball throughout it rather than just like cram near your assessment deadlines. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. For English and film in my first 2 years sub honors, it was 3 lectures a week and 1 tutorial. For film, we also sometimes had workshop sessions as well, but they were kind of few and far between. And then as I've moved into honors, I've just had basically 2 hour seminars for each subject, and that's it. But I think one of the really great things is, particularly as you move into honors, is that you can make the most out of office hours. So you can have a one-to-one meeting with a tutor or a lecturer that's, on your module, discuss maybe upcoming assignments. If you're unsure about any kind of readings that you've been assigned, that's really where you make the most of that time. So you have to be a bit more proactive. If you need those contact hours, they are there if you need them. But again, the shift is more towards you kind of doing your own independent research in your final 2 years. For exams and assignments, English is pretty uniform across all 4 years. So typically you'll have 2 coursework assignments and then 1 exam at the end. Some courses, as Edward was saying, do just have all coursework. The exams typically are 2 hours and you'll have maybe 2 essays to write, maybe 1 close reading, 1 kind of general. But they stay pretty much the same over the 4 years. Film is slightly different in that in our first 2 years, we did it during COVID. So I actually had 8-hour exams that were online. I've heard of some people as well having 24-hour exams. So you don't need to stay awake for 24 hours, but you have 24 hours to complete the exam paper. Some of that has shifted since, but I think sometimes there are still online components of some courses. But in my final 2 years for film, there's no exams at all. And what we are assigned at the end of the semester is a research paper, which is really good preparation if you're wanting to do a dissertation. It's about 4,000 words in length. You have to submit a research proposal. So that's good for kind of setting you up for the final kind of big piece of coursework that you're expected to do as well.
So this is going to be a massive science versus arts split because I don't think I found it funnier than when Thea was like, yeah, it's so many contact hours. So I would have 3 lectures a day, 5 days a week, and then I would have labs 3 to 4 afternoons every single week. Now, that might sound like a lot, but this is probably something that like the rest of the panelists don't experience, is that everything I needed was in my lecture notes. We were given all of the information we needed in the right level of detail. There wasn't any extra reading that you had to do. I only ever bought 1 textbook throughout my entire time at St Andrews, and it was for quantum mechanics, which I think we can all appreciate is probably quite complicated. So it was worth but it was a £10 textbook, not hundreds of pounds that lots of people end up spending on textbooks at other unis. So very much I had far more contact hours, but they were really, really quality. So then on to the way the course was structured, it was very different each year. So first year you had to study physical, first and second year you studied physical, organic, and inorganic as modules. And these were large modules, they'd be like 30 credits, which is each semester you would do 60 credits total of modules. So these would take up quite a lot of your year, and they were very dense with all the information, but they also covered a broad range of things. So within organic, we would study bioorganic, we would study compounds. You'd really cover it very broadly. And that was for first and second year to make sure everybody had the same grounding before moving to third and fourth, which is honours, where you had far more specific modules. They dropped down to about 15 credits. Some of them were only 10. So a lot of our exams were 100% exam in chemistry. So we would learn everything for the module and then sit 1 exam at the end, and that would be your end grade. One of the big things in chemistry that isn't necessarily the same in all the subjects, you had to pass every single component to graduate. And that is quite a big deal. It's very difficult to fail, but you couldn't just say, oh, I'm not going to hand this in because I've got enough, like I'm doing well enough in all of my other subjects. I'm not going to bother. You have to make sure you've passed everything. There is a lot of support if you are somebody who is struggling and things like that. So we would have a lot of lectures every week, depending on which module you were doing. Minimum I think I ever had was 3 a week for one of my modules. I would then have tutorials for pretty much every single subject. Once you got to third and fourth year, the tutorials did drop off because it was more lecture focused, because we weren't assessed on our tutorials. Then obviously I've mentioned it's a lot of 100% exam. And then for our assignments, we had to write up all of our lab reports. These were often really, really useful, particularly if you want to do a PhD or a separate master's, making sure you've got a good lab book. So we'd be marked on our lab books, our lab reports. Because I did some of my degree during COVID, I also wrote safety assessments and we were assessed on those. There is definitely a lot of variation in how chemistry is done at St Andrews. They receive a lot of feedback every year, and the course does modify because of that. So my experience will most likely be quite different to what anybody who goes on to do chemistry at St Andrews' experience. So that's something to bear in mind. But we are a high contact hour subject, but that is a really good thing if you think about how much money you are spending. You really do get a lot of quality of teaching for the cost of your degree.
Great, guys. Thank you. Really nice to see like the difference between arts and humanities. Okay, so moving on, what is or was your favorite part of your degree, Theo?
I think the feeling that so I didn't do any Arabic before I came to St Andrews, and I think what changing subjects at university or before you come to university, I changed in the summer before I joined, offers you is the ability to really, before you go to university, sit down and think, right, what is actually my goal for university? Like, what do I actually want to get from university? What I realized was actually I wanted to leave with a skill that I didn't have before joining. Which, I've got a lot of friends that do history of art and kudos to them, but a history of art degree doesn't necessarily cultivate. So what I really enjoy about my subject is the fact that I'm going to be leaving with a skill I didn't have before I joined, the ability to speak a language, communicate with literally millions of people, without this language, I would not have been able to communicate with them. So that's a great thing. Yeah.
I think honestly, like just I've noticed throughout my time at St Andrews, like just the way I think is slightly different now, in a better way. Like, um, see for in management before, like I at A level, I was always like focusing on like, you know, the standard sort of business school approach of like focusing on the bottom line and that. And then like this semester, I've taken a sociology of finance module, which is like such a different way of thinking about that industry. And it's like just goes underappreciated like elsewhere, I think. And then like for philosophy, just like the ability to articulate myself well has just improved so much. And I can just like I feel like I honestly just understand a lot of situations a lot better than I used to before my experience. So like, yeah, like I think that, yeah.
I think for me, both my subjects have quite a global approach, particularly the film studies department. So it's introduced me to kind of a range of different media objects I had never encountered before, never kind of knew existed. In English, we have a module in second year that's a medieval module, so focusing on kind of learning Old English. I'd never encountered that before. We also have a drama specific module, that's kind of my main area of interest. And so it was really wonderful to kind of dive into that really early on. Both subjects give you a really good grounding in your first 2 years so that then the things that I've ended up specializing in are not things I thought I was going to do. But because of that grounding in my first 2 years, I really appreciate being able to kind of experiment and try out different things. But I think kind of overall as a person, it's also changed the way that I kind of critically engage with particularly for film wise, like our contemporary media landscape in both kind of academic and personal contexts. So it's kind of helped me expand my worldview, but also look for nuances in debates, be more open to having discussions with people who disagree with me, and being able to articulate that better in discussions with different people. Tutorials are a really good space to do that, to learn how to voice your opinions, feed off what other people are saying, and kind of improve your critical thought processes in doing that as well.
So the opportunity to do different modules was brilliant. I specialized in physical chemistry and maths modules. And then the other thing that I thought was brilliant, particularly in chemistry, we had a lot of different dissertation topics when it came to our fourth year. And there was a maximum of two, maybe one of them had three students per topic. And so that was just two of you or just one of you with a lecturer. And then you had different titles or you took it in different directions. So myself and another student were both paired with the same lecturer. However, I went down the educational chemistry route and I went down modeling, whereas they studied like chaos theory and lent on their physics background because they were a joint honours degree. So even when you end up with, say, one dissertation title, you can then change and chop and change it and get so much of what you specifically want out of that situation. And I do think that level of flexibility is brilliant.
Great, really nice, guys. Like what you mentioned about your tutors links very well to the next question. Like you mentioned how your tutors are kind of like your support here and how they've helped you. So I think absolutely what my next question is what kind of support do you actually get from your tutors, like specific support? And the second part of the question is, do you think it's helpful? And I think you've answered that, but yeah, see you.
The great thing about languages, as I was saying earlier, is the small class size, particularly a subject like Arabic. I mean, there are 40 or 50 of us in my year doing Arabic, but my class size in terms of, other than my 2 lectures a week, my sort of seminars are, and it can range between 2 and 6 students to one teacher. So I've basically met every member of the Arabic department now, some members of the Persian department. And as a result of the small class size, I know them very well. They know me very well, to the point of like bumping into them in the street and having like a long chat and catching up and actually getting quite a personal relationship with the people that are, marking your work and teaching you things. And it does mean that you learn better as a result. And if you have any questions about anything, it's really, really easy to get in touch with them. So they've been, the Arabic department have been super, super supportive, and so the Middle Eastern Studies department is run by the School of History. And similarly, there aren't many Middle Eastern history experts sort of in the world, let alone at one university. So you get to know them very, very easily, very quickly. You develop a good personal relationship. I think it was Eilish was saying before about office hours. Super, super helpful, means that at honors level, you get to really go to a tutor and say, look, I want to look into this. Can you recommend resources? Or this is an essay plan that I've got. Can you give me some pointers? Am I going the right direction? And all of that kind of stuff is really supportive. And maybe I've got a slightly skewed experience doing a sort of more niche subject with fewer students in it. I'm going to have higher sort of lower student to teacher ratios. But I've had a really positive experience of it, and I found it really helpful.
Yeah, so like I've just noticed with my tutors, professors and everything, like they just want you to succeed. So they're just very open to like having chats all the time. So at the minute, in my conceptual engineering module, I've got to like come up with an essay question, write an essay like in a couple of weeks. And the professor was literally like, have an informal chat with me about it at the start while you're kind of coming up with your plan, and then a bit more formal as you like get a bit more nitty gritty, like what you actually want to do with it. And then like even after it, like for feedback, the feedback in the philosophy department is really good. Like they just label like every paragraph that you write will have a comment saying like what you could have done better, what you could have like improved on, what you did well. So it's really good. And also like they're just like professors that are at the top of their game. Like Theo was saying, like there's not many experts in his area, but they're like loads of them are here. And like when I'm studying, I'm like, oh, I read your paper like a couple of weeks ago, kind of a thing. Like it's just really nice to get people that are such a high level, but then they're also like wanting you to succeed, and they make the time for you, which is really good.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I've had only great experiences with tutors that I've had across both departments and both subjects. I think one of the really great things is that when you go to office hours, they're not just there to kind of reassure you, they want to kind of feed off what your kind of concerns are as well. So they're really attuned to what it is that you're trying to get from whatever assignment or subject it is that you're trying to do. So they will tailor kind of towards you in that sense. I've also had quite like small subject sizes. English is a very big school, but I've got to know tutors really, really well on a kind of one-to-one basis through mainly kind of office hours and things like that. They're also more than happy for you to kind of pop them an email as and when you need. I know, especially in my case, if I've had an assignment and I'm slightly, having a last minute panic before I submit something, I just pop a quick email to double check everything's fine. They'll come back, they'll be reassuring. They're like, have faith in what you're doing. So I've really appreciated that. I also think once I've got to kind of honors level, and choosing classes. I have sometimes picked classes based on who the tutor is going to be. My dissertation supervisor at the moment, I've actually had for 2 other modules. And so, starting off my dissertation, already having that established relationship with the tutor has meant that we can kind of speed along the process. He knows what I'm interested in. I know where he can help me. And that's, just a much more kind of productive academic relationship as well. But it also means you can be open if you're having, if you're struggling with anything, you can ask questions without feeling, concerned about how they're going to perceive you. They're more than happy for you to ask questions. And in fact, they more than often encourage it. So I think in terms of the support system, it's very kind of holistic and comprehensive.
So very similar. So I would definitely say that as far as the support, you do have to go and look for it. It's something that you then have to reach out and ask for that support. But once you've asked, it is all there. So go to your office hours, make sure you ask questions in lectures, stay behind lectures to ask questions. The fact that you're engaging is what they want. Like that's what people are interested in and are very excited about that. Just make sure that you're making the effort to reach out. And I completely agree with what Eilish said. When you are looking at your dissertation, it's not just the things you're interested in, but you also need to make sure you get on with your dissertation supervisor. That is a big deal.
Great, thanks, guys. A bit of a nice, fun question after this. What are some of the clubs/societies that you joined during uni, and why did you join them, and did you enjoy it? Theo?
I imagine probably what everyone will say is just join as many as you can for a start, and throw yourself into anything that you think you might enjoy. When I came here, I joined the chapel choir, the Madrigal group, which is another singing group, and the other guys, which is another singing group, and Calsoc, and I've this year I've run Calsoc, which has been really good fun, a lot of balls, and it's been a really positive experience. Really enjoyed it. And I've got involved with, I mean, practically any society under the sun is here. So be that, if you're interested in foreign affairs, music, drama, sports. I've not done as much sport as I should like, but I know that for example, when I'm coming back from my year abroad, I want to get more involved with the sport side of things. And what I found particularly actually is that while people level the accusation at St Andrews often about it being a small place with, not a lot going on, the students are well aware that it is a small place and you don't have as many the sort of external sources of fun that you might have in London. You can't necessarily as easily go to a play or, a show or a concert or whatever. So students are very proactive in getting that to happen themselves. I'm doing a play at the moment with a student-run theatre company that's up here, which is really, really good. And as I say, it goes to show when there isn't something that's immediately here, the students make it happen. They're very proactive about doing that. The music scene is very similar. There's a St Andrews Chamber Opera group that I've done some stuff with that's also goes to show that proactivity is very much a thing here. And if there isn't something here that you enjoy, I assure you will find other people that want to start that thing up with you.
Yeah, so like just bouncing off what Theo said, it's like starting up stuff. Two of my friends lived in Switzerland for a little bit, so they wanted to set up a Swiss society. So I just joined that as the treasurer. So got a bit of experience for my CV on that as well, but got to do that, which I would probably not have done if it wasn't for their sort of like passion to do with it. In Freshers Week, there are so many like free experience trial things of all the different sports clubs, which are great. Like I think I did about 5 in third year. And then like away from sports, like with the societies, like I still go to the Philosophy Society quite often because they bring in guest speakers quite a lot. I don't go to them all the weeks. Like I just go to the ones that look interesting and sound cool. But yeah, like it's not a big city. People make it here, so they just make the societies that they want to do, and you can join them, and they're great. Yeah.
I think my engagement with societies has probably changed over the course of the 4 years. I think one of the great things is that you can kind of be as involved or not involved as you want to be. So in my first 2 years, I did a lot with mermaids, which is the Performing Arts Fund. So I'd done some like costume design for that, did some producing, I kind of just got roped into things by friends. I think that's quite often the case with societies, is that you kind of end up being dragged along to things with your friends, and that can be a really good way to meet new people as well, especially when you're just starting out. I'm a student ambassador, so it's not necessarily like a society. Not all societies are affiliated with the union. So in that capacity, I work with admissions. The past 2 years, I've been the vice principal, so that's been a good thing to have on my CV as well. Having a bit more kind of hands-on experience of how the university admissions department runs. And then also this year we set up the 93% Club in St Andrews. So it's a nationwide network of state school students at kind of Russell Group universities. It was a society that had been set up a couple of years ago, kind of died down a little bit. And so we've kind of brought that back this year. So as you're saying, if you feel there's a gap in the kind of social scene, then you can, create a society of your own. But I think just go along to anything and everything. You'll be surprised at the things that we have here. There's like a hole digging society. So if you want to get outside, go on the beach, then go ahead and join that. I know like my friends from international places have really benefited from having a community from home in societies. So a couple of my flatmates who lived in Hong Kong for a while, I've really enjoyed kind of going to Hong Kong society and feeling a sense of community from that as well. So there's a whole range of different things that you can get involved in.
When I was at uni, I had two major societies I was part of, and that was Canoe Club and Mountaineering. One of the best things about these societies was St Andrews is described as a bubble, and that is rather accurate. But these societies focused on getting out of St Andrews. We did mountaineering trips, going hiking, did canoeing trips in lots of different places. So that's something that is definitely, the amount of societies on offer was one of the big draws for me to St Andrews, because there was so much to do that wasn't academic. Because people do think about, when you think about uni, you're thinking about the degree you get at the end, but it is a whole experience. And if you spend all your time focusing on your degree, then you're not developing necessarily all of yourself that you could be developing while at university. And when people are looking on who to hire at the end, when you're looking for jobs, it is not just based on your grades. You have to be somebody who's personable, that they want in an actual office. They want you to be a co-worker, and experience in societies does really add to that.
Yeah, Edward, you have something.
I just forgot to mention as well, like fashion shows are massive here. It's never been something that like interests me, but I just forgot like that people like make costumes, like do the whole like setup, like they're huge. So like if people are interested in like fashion show type stuff, like yeah, like I say, it's not been a thing for me, but like that's another big part of like societies and clubs and stuff here.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think fashion shows is like a UK thing because they have that here as well. Okay, more on your student life. What is accommodation like at your university? Is it easy to find? And like what has been your experience with St. Andrew's Accom? Theo?
I think everyone has a very you'll get a variation of different experiences with accommodation. It's famously hard to get here once you've left halls in first year. So everyone's in halls in first year, practically everyone. And then after first year, most people try to go outside of halls for accommodation. I say most people because it's super expensive. And you can be paying, I mean, I know people that are paying up to and even over £1,000 a month per person for a flat, which is something that I could never afford. So a lot of people choose to stay in halls for financial reasons. A lot of people choose to stay in halls because obviously it's a small town, so there aren't actually that many places available. The vast majority of people I know are living out. I have friends that live in halls, but I'd say a good sort of 90, 95% of people do manage to move out. But many of those live in Dundee or Guardbridge or sort of various towns around St Andrews. If you've got a car, that's absolutely fine. I've got friends that live in Guardbridge and actually prefer to live in Guardbridge because it's like a 10-minute drive or so from St Andrews, and they quite like that separation, sort of getting out of the bubble feeling. I have had a great experience with accommodation. I was quite lucky that I found somewhere pretty early on. A lot of places are sort of fairly hand-me-down. So if you get to know a lot of the third and fourth years when you join, they can kind of hand you down their flats. And so that's a great thing. But I would say it is expensive. And I mean, I was lucky that I did some work before I came, and I'm working while being here. But I think if it weren't for that work, I would probably have to live in halls because it is so much more expensive to live outside of halls than it is to live in halls.
Yeah, like Thea was saying, it is quite expensive. I think it's like the most expensive uni outside of London in terms of accommodation costs. First year you're sorted, like you don't need to worry. I'm pretty sure they like guarantee that you'll have somewhere to stay in your first year. Second year, so I ended up in a uni managed accommodation, which is basically like the uni is the letting agency, which means that you get a bit more like, I don't know, it feels a bit safer than like you hear some landlord horror stories. So like, if it's attached to the uni, you don't need to worry too much about that, which is nice. In terms of like the hand-me-down type things, like you will get to know third and fourth years as well through our like academic family type thing that we have going on here, where you get to know people like above and below you in terms of your like year cohort, so that like it won't be as hard as some people might think it will be. I'm pretty sure that they are currently building a new halls of residence, which should help ease the like massive supply and demand problems that we have at the moment, which I think is a reason why a lot of people are living in like, well, not a lot of people, but I do know a couple of people that are living in Dundee and stuff. But yeah, I have had to have like in my second and third year, I think I did work. Well, yeah, no, I did work quite a lot at a restaurant, um, both in term time and like over summer to like fund that. I've been able to like drop that off in my final semester, but like, yeah, sometimes you do have to like do a bit more like work outside of uni so that you can afford it. But that's like depends on the person, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, I was on halls for my first year. I think one thing to note when you're applying for halls in your first year is that you don't apply for a specific hall, you apply for a type. So you'll apply for something like self-catered ensuite or catered ensuite. So when you're applying, you're not going to apply to somewhere specifically. And they also ask for like a lifestyle questionnaire to see, what are your interests, what time do you usually go to bed? What time do you usually wake up in the morning? And that can be a good way for them to try and match you with flatmates. It ended up working out really well for me. I'm living with the same people that I was randomly partnered with in first year, and I'm now in my fourth year. In terms of then looking for private accommodation, I know that because our year is the largest kind of COVID cohort, obviously the year group size was doubled by, well, not doubled, but increased by about 2,000 students. So once our year and the year below us have graduated, the ease on, housing is expected to ease a little bit more. So if you're applying now, then hopefully that will be better once you're here. So that's something to bear in mind as well. I think the uni have put in, requested planning permission, as we were saying, for a new halls of accommodation, which hopefully new students will be able to benefit from. We found our house that I've been living in for the past 2 years on Zoopla. There's a kind of range of different websites that are used, but the union has a subcommittee that deals specifically with accommodation. So they can help you look over any kind of tenancy agreements, work out the kind of the viability of different estate agents or landlords. So I know for a lot of people, it's the first time they're ever kind of engaging in the housing market at all. So if you're unsure of anything, you can take it to them. They can read over terms of agreement, just so that you feel, that everything legally is okay. So that's a really good resource to use as well. I know that our current student association president has been doing a lot of campaigning with the university on the kind of housing crisis nationwide. So it is definitely a priority in terms of student representation as well.
So very different to everybody else, as it seems to be always. I stayed in halls for all 4 of my years, and that was personal choice. I wanted to. It was definitely the best decision for me. So I stayed in Andrew Melville, which is one of the cheapest halls actually at St Andrews, or it used to be. It's further out of town, but it's actually closer to the science block than if you were to live in the center of town. So for me, it was mega convenient. I lived right next to the gym, which was brilliant for my mountaineering because we had a climbing wall at the gym. So that I absolutely loved it. One of the things I do completely agree with Ailish about when you first apply, you only apply to kind of like a hall type. It's very different when you are a returning student in second, third, and fourth year. You apply to a specific hall. You only apply to one from memory. And then if you don't get that, which does happen, they'll send you an email and they'll give you the choices, and you've just got to be really quick replying because it is then first come, first served if you don't get into your first choice with what other halls there are available, still with space. One of the things that benefited me, I was on the student council within Andrew Melville for all of the years I was there, and that did give me a predisposition to be able to get in. The other thing that gives you more likelihood of getting in a second year, I can't remember all of the things, but one of them was if it's reported to the uni that you're definitely someone who's on like a lower finance, this is you do that as part of like your when they have a lot of support in place. So if you're somebody from a background that they have provided you with extra support, you're more likely to get into halls. If you're on student committees, if you've got any health things that are going on that the university knows about, that can also increase your likelihood of getting into halls because the university does want to support you. It's just about making sure you're using the correct channels with that. But I would really suggest that people go into halls if they want to. I did find it amazing, and I didn't feel like an odd one out being a second, third, or fourth year within halls of residence. The support system was really good, and I actually did work in my final 2 years in the canteen of the halls I lived in.
Yeah, Eilish.
Just on that kind of point of being from a lower income background, that was definitely my case. So in my first year, it's really good to be proactive applying for scholarships. There is an accommodation scholarship which I applied for, and then what the university did was they looked at my situation and ended up putting me forward for another scholarship, which then actually covered my 4 years of study. So when you're applying for things at the beginning, be proactive in sharing what your circumstances are. Apply for anything and absolutely everything that you think you might be eligible for, because like in my instance, the university found something that actually fit my circumstances much better and have, been able to kind of accommodate me throughout the 4 years. So that's something to bear in mind as well. There's also a discretionary fund. So if you have any kind of unexpected circumstances that come up, that you weren't, planning on happening, then you can apply to that. But again, it's about you kind of communicating that with the university. The support is there if you need it. You just need to kind of let them know that that's what's happening.
Great, thanks, guys. I think this will be the last question before we move on to the questions asked during the panel. So you guys mentioned talked a lot about like counseling and wellness. So just to give like a broad overview, like what are the counseling, wellness, and other services related to this that are available to students? Theo?
There are a lot of initiatives that the university sort of sponsors or puts on for students. The student services, which are the main one, which is sort of counseling, I suppose, for students if you're ever having a tough time of it. I know a lot of people, particularly in second year seems to be the year that most people tend to the vast majority of student services, I'll put it this way, the vast majority of student services are geared towards second years, and most of the sort of clients of student services are second years. I don't know why that happens. I think it's probably to do with people moving out of halls and sort of going into accommodation for like their own flats for the first time, and that's quite a big, so academically it's a step up and so on. And I made use of student services last term, and I found it really useful, really helpful, no matter what your circumstances, whether it's outside of university, personal life stuff that's going on, inside of university, stuff that's going on. They were very helpful. And I particularly like the way that they're quite quantitative about things. So sort of week on week, they'll send you like a questionnaire and you can sort of see how you're getting on week, which personally, like the way I work, really helps me because I can actually feel like, things are improving and things are helping. So that was really positive. There are a lot of other initiatives that the university puts forward. I know there's like a student services dog that sits outside the library quite a lot of the time, which I've never like made use of, but I like thinking about it now. I realize that every time I walk into the library and I see that dog, it does just like slightly make my day because it is a very adorable dog. So it's just like small things like that that does make you really feel that the university has your back. Um, so yeah, and I think the other thing that's a really big deal about well-being at St Andrews is actually not university related, but just geography. Like the fact that there are three beaches. I like for Lent, I've been doing a swim a day, and I've found that that's massively boosted my just sort of well-being and general wellness. And cold water swimming is known to do that. So that's an incredible thing that we've got going for us here. The fact that there are three beaches, it's sunny quite a lot. Even if it is very windy, it is sunny quite a lot. So getting into the countryside, going on walks, laid braes, that kind of thing. There's a sort of nature reserve kind of thing. I'm not really sure how to describe it, sort of down the river. There are a lot of different avenues that you can go down personally through the university, on walks, on swims. If you do have stuff going on. And as Eilish was saying, also scholarships, many available. So take a look.
Yeah, so I've only used student services once, and that was last semester when I was just getting like just brain fog and like anxiety about an assessment I was doing. Just like being able to talk about it with someone from student services was like way more useful than I expected it to be. Because I was quite cynical about it at the start, not gonna lie. So that worked wonders for me. I know people that have then like been referred to, I think, therapists from the uni, but I could be mistaken, like on the back of those like student services meetings. So like, you might be struggling with some stuff and then you have sort of like a meeting with someone that I was able to end it at that stage, but other people then gone to get therapy like from that. I think yeah, like and the dogs as well. Like there's sometimes I have like when the union was still more open, they had like you just like come and cuddle the dog for a little bit, which helped a lot of people, I think, by the sounds of it. But yeah, like so it is there, and I think also like compared to a lot of my friends at other unis, I think it's a lot better here than it is at other places. But again, I've only sort of like used it myself once, and I only know a couple of people that have used it. But yeah, my understanding is pretty good compared to other universities in the UK.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I've used student services before. I think one of the really useful things from the kind of academic perspective as well is that student services can let your tutors know if there's something that they feel they need to know. It's entirely kind of on your own, kind of preference, but they can let your tutors know if it's going to affect your assignments, things like that. So it's very kind of comprehensive that everything kind of links up, so that you're getting the support that you need across kind of all facets of your university life. I think another thing to mention is that the union has a well-being officer. Most societies will have a well-being kind of representative that are there to kind of look out for people at events, etc. Each kind of school and department as well will have somebody who's representing well-being as well. Typically, there's an academic as well. In the School of English, I know we have 2 academics who are well-being officers. So there's tons of different places where you can access the support. So if you're maybe not somebody who likes, encountering somebody that you don't know before, I know I've had some friends that were a bit hesitant to kind of reach out to people that they didn't know. So they went to, a tutor that they felt they could confide in. And then they can kind of escalate it as and how it's needed. But it's pretty much every kind of avenue is open to you. Again, it's like what Miriam was saying earlier. You just kind of need to be the one to take that first step and access the support if you feel that you need it. And yeah, the dog is great. I don't really have anything else to say.
I think everyone's really covered kind of the academic side of it. One thing that I really enjoyed from my societies was we would have a role called the sober sailor. So on nights out or kind of events, canoe club would always have a nominated or even 2. We would often try and have like a male and female in case anybody was more comfortable with that gender, say, to reach out to if anything had gone wrong on that night out or they were uncomfortable. The sober sailor would be there to be sober and to really like take you, like just be there to support you. And I just feel like that really sums up a lot of St Andrews. The fact that students would choose, not that drinking is everything, but do you know what I mean? They would make that choice to not drink, to be there for other people, even on something as such as a night out. The union had like their Ask for Angela if you ever wanted to get home. There is so much support out there. You just got to make sure you've looked in the right place. And if you're nervous before even going to uni, like reach out to current students when you do, and if you do an open day, there will be people there, ask them questions. Honestly, I loved St Andrews so much. I can only really say positive things about it. So yeah.
Great, thanks, guys. Sorry we overran a bit. But yeah, that was the last question. I think there's no open questions. So yeah, we are at the end of our time today, but thank you so much to our panelists for spending this afternoon with us and giving us some wonderful insight into St. Andrews University. I have personally learned a lot, and I think we can all agree that our amazing panelists have done a great job providing some really good information, and I hope this will guide your decision making regarding your next steps. And once again, if you need any help with university and career guidance, do check out our website and Instagram. And you can also contact the panelists via LinkedIn to get help with any questions you may have. So thank you so much once again, and have a great rest of the day, guys.